Okay, so here's the thing that no one wants you to know. Excellent service can save a bad meal, but an excellent meal can be ruined by bad service. We think it's time that the front of the house got the spotlight they deserve. Welcome to Dine and Dish, where the business of dining meets the art of hospitality. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Krista.
Welcome to our very first ever podcast.
I know. How exciting is this?
I know, it's great. I'm very excited because, and you and I discussed this quite a bit, everything that's out there in the world that talks about restaurants focuses on the chef, the food, the back of the house. And nobody talks about front of the house, which baffles the hell out of me. We're
Me
like
too.
peanut butter and jelly. We go together. We got to talk about both. And so I love that there's finally now going to be a podcast that exists that comes from the lens of front of the house.
And I could not agree with you more, especially being a restaurateur. And every time we open a restaurant, I live at the front. I'm at the front door. I'm greeting the guest. I'm going table to table. And I truly believe that the experience and what the guest sees up front can make or break everything. And
100%. Yeah. This is the thing that I will get into the minutia of all of this down the road. But like the very first time any paying guest or customer, depending on how you like to call them, has an experience with your restaurant, it's when they make a reservation. That is the very first time. Before they even walk through the door, they already have an impression of what they're getting into, good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's just baffling to me that nobody talks about it, but that's why we're here.
Of course. And this is so exciting because I always say, and anybody that knows me, whether they're dining in the restaurant, they're on the phone with me, I'm being interviewed, the first thing I say is, we eat atmosphere. People don't care about the food. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Some people are. Yeah, you're a foodie.
I think the Michelin people would disagree with you, but
I was going to say, you know what? I'm a foodie, but I'm also the restaurateur, so I look at the whole big picture. But, you know, we opened this restaurant in Florida, and I think I started to tell you this before, and I had a very good friend, and she comes into the restaurant, and she's like, I don't care about the food. I don't care about the restaurant. I eat atmosphere. And if the atmosphere and the service is amazing, the food and my experience is going to be amazing. And I am so excited to do this show with you because you and I are on the same wavelength for sure.
For the most part, yes. I mean, I think here's the thing. Now, you know, I come from Michelin in New York City. So when you say the food doesn't matter, there's a part of me that just went into PTSD land. Like I just immediately went into people yelling at me because I didn't, put the correct, hyssop anise on the right portion of the plate, like insanity. But yes, it has to be about more than the food, because if I'm going out to eat and I'm paying $25 for pasta, which is what it is in New York City, minimum, it's pasta. Like what else am I getting? It has to be about the whole shebang. And so that's why we're here. Okay. So today we're going to talk about something that Michelle and I get asked about all the time ad nauseum. And that is about the TV show, The Bear. Is it real? Does it mimic real life in a restaurant? Blah, blah, blah. And so we're like, you know what? Let's just get it out of the way. Let's talk about it. Now, full disclosure, I have watched all 4 seasons. Michelle has not. I'm throwing you under the bus. So we will
I have not. But wait, I have to tell you something really funny. Yeah. So I'm in Italy. I'm not even in the same time zone. It's like I'm sleeping. I think it's 3:00 in the morning, and I get this crazy text. And I'm like, who the heck is texting me? Because you have to remember, people on the East Coast don't know that there's a 6 or 7 hour time change. So my phone dings and it's like a friend of ours and says, oh my God, I'm watching the best show ever. Have you seen this show? It's called The Bear. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe 3 years ago, but yes. And then I texted, then we started texting back and forth. It's 3:00 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, am I really having a banter conversation at 3 a.m. on a cruise ship in the middle of the Mediterranean talking about The Bear?
Yes, apparently you are.
I mean, everybody's talking about the
I
damn bear.
know. It's so funny. People slip into my DMs all the time, not to ask me on dates, by the way, which is really fucking annoying, but only they want to ask me questions about the bear. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. So we had to talk about it today.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
before we even get started and we
Yes.
talk about what we liked and what we didn't like, because I have my opinions,
Mm.
I have to get your first impression. Like, this show comes out. First off, I had no idea what I was watching when it first came out. I was like, the bear. I'm like, what the frick is the bear? And then I turn it on. I'm like, oh my God, it's all about the restaurant business. And season 1 was, I have to tell you, I could relate 100% being a restaurateur, but I have to get your first impression because you are the opposite, like over the top. You're like season 2, 3, when he's the Michelin and he takes the hot freaking mess and turns it into somewhat of a not hot mess. But I have to get your first impression. What did you think?
So I was hooked on it immediately. You can tell that there are people who worked in restaurants who are active on that show, that are influencing not just the script and the way that the choreography happens in the kitchen, but also the little tiny details that maybe a layperson wouldn't pick up on. But if you work in a restaurant, you would see it immediately. For example, there was a scene in season 1 where Carmy and Sid are outside and they're drinking coffee out of quart containers. Yes. And I was like, that's it. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Or the containers everybody drinks water out of. Every time I go in the kitchen, I'm like, there's the containers. They're all on the line because all of them are using for ice water and coffee.
Right, because you can't use glass on the line. Right, so you use quart containers. Right. So, and I was like, oh, that's not something anybody would know. Like, listen, I know scriptwriters who are fabulous, but unless you work in a restaurant, like you're not going to know those little tiny details. And I was like, okay, so they know what they're talking about. Yeah. And then we got to episode 7 of season 1, and I almost had to stop watching. As a reminder, and listen, that we're now on season 4, so if you haven't seen it, there's spoilers. This is just what it is. Season 1.
We're going to talk about it.
Spoiler alert, we're talking about it. So episode 7 in season 1 was that episode where Sid forgot to turn off the to-go orders online, and the printer just kept going and going at an insane pace. And every single human that's ever worked in a restaurant knows the sound of that printer. And that will stay in your brain until the day you die. And the fact that it just kept going.
I have to stop you. When that went off, my husband and I were watching it, and Gennaro was like looking at me and I looked at him and we just started laughing because everybody's had that experience where it's like, boop, 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 they just keep shooting out and they're going everywhere. I mean, tickets fly. I mean, for new restaurants, especially when you're opening and you're in the first couple weeks and you see all those tickets coming, the chef, I mean, you can see the stress, and like, that's a whole nother conversation when we get into
yes, we'll get into restaurant openings as a whole other animal. But yes, that was, I almost had to watch, because then I found myself sitting there watching it. This is how insane restaurant people are. I found myself sitting there watching this episode, and in real time, I'm talking back to the TV, trying to troubleshoot. Well, okay, this is what you need to do. And and then I had to stop myself. I'm like, you're not at work, Krista. Knock it off.
Yeah, and then you have the head chef going, turn the fucking third party off.
Yeah.
Turn the iPads off, and they start turning everything off because it's like Fire City.
I mean, so yes, of course things were done for dramatic effect, but yeah, that was pretty accurate. There are some things that were less accurate with the show, but like that was pretty accurate. Also, I think, and Michelle, I don't know if you watched when the character Richie did a stage at the Michelin. It was Olivia Colman was the actress who played the executive chef. That bugged me a little bit because I think he only did a stage for like a week. And though he had that moment of like he had that light bulb moment, like, oh, like I'm good I can do this. Like he found his purpose, which is really, really beautiful. And I love that actor. But to think that can happen in 1 week of a stage
in real life.
Please.
Yeah. Well, season 1, I loved. I was so into it. I was watching it. It was engaging. There was, like you said, a lot that's reality and a lot that's done for Hollywood because they have to gain people's, insight, and
They need
people have
ratings.
to love it, and they have to want to watch it, and you need a little bit of drama because everybody loves drama. That's why we have all the housewives and we have all these other crazy shows.
And they call it a comedy, which is beyond. It's not a comedy.
I mean, comedy maybe if you're in the restaurant business, because as I always say, the gray hair on my head is every one of our restaurants and head chefs.
But that show is not a comedy.
It's not a comedy.
No.
Yeah. But, I stopped watching it because by the time we got to like the end of season 2 and beginning of it just got very, I don't want to say monotonous, but it just lost my attention. I think the first season, like we talked about, season 1 had a lot of different dynamics and it was very engaging. And like you, I was kind of screaming at the TV, laughing. And then, when he had that meltdown and he was sitting on the floor, like there was so many things I could relate to. And I mean, I lived that side owning the restaurant, where, just like he was running out of money and you're opening, we went through that. I mean, we've opened restaurants where we're like, holy shit, we're dumping so much damn money into this thing. When is it ever going to turn around? And you see the vendor bills and you see this. So as a restaurateur, I related so much to that. And then, here's where you and I are a little bit different, where you said, yes, you come from the Michelin world. I don't. I mean, do I eat there? Do I enjoy it? Do I love the experience? Absolutely. But I don't live in that world. My world is the real, struggle, restaurateur, open, put your heart and soul, be at the door. So when it got into like season 2 and 3, it was so onto the Michelin side. I guess I didn't relate as much. So it wasn't as engaging to me as I guess.
As the other seasons. But the interesting thing about, and I see where you're coming from. The interesting thing about that is, and yes, I know you come from the restaurateur side and I come from the Michelin side, but there are still so many similarities in both of those. Like I opened 3 restaurants in the city. It's not easy. And there's a lot of the same struggles just because it's Michelin. It's just the stress is a different kind of stress and it's a different level of stress, but it's still the same stress. But what the Bear did do in regards to front of the house, in regards to service, which I'd love to talk about, they did something that I thought was really wonderful. And that is they did show everyone that restaurants have a way of communicating without speaking. And the reason that we do that is because it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz things like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We don't want you to see the man behind the curtain. We just want you to be a part of the magic that's happening in front of you and don't worry about the stuff behind the scenes. And so when they were at that Michelin star, and even going now into season 4, which you didn't watch.
Now they're opening because you're throwing me under the bus, so now I have to go watch it.
Correct. But it did show how like they use soignés, right? And how they pass soignés back and forth. They showed how they use hand signals. So in restaurants, especially in the ones that I've worked in, we use like basically baseball hand signals. Not as crazy as if I'm on, home plate, but we basically all use baseball hand signals and they all mean something different. Like if you hold your hand out, right, and you spread your fingers wide like jazz hands, and then you bend your thumb back in and you have your 4 fingers showing. If you wiggle those 4 fingers, that means that you want sparkling water. Like, so there's little things like that we do that go out throughout the restaurant. And then the soigné are those little pieces of paper that have notes on them that get passed to you unbeknownst to the guest. And then you bring to the kitchen or you bring for yourself. And that tells you they're a VIP or there's an allergy or there's something special. There's an anniversary, something that you should know. And again, it's completely kept away from the guests. And so I think it's really cool that they showcased that because that is an inner working of the front of the house that no one ever talks about because, of course, people don't talk about the front of the house.
Right. So I have to add to that. And I love that you brought that up because my biggest pet peeve in the world is when you can hear the kitchen when you're in fine dining. And we opened a restaurant. I have to tell you this story because you would have died. I think you would have gotten up and ran to the line and said, shut the fuck up. I mean, there was so many weekends.
Probably.
We had a head chef, I have to tell you. So we had a head chef and love him to death. He's still a dear friend of my husband. And, but every time he got in the weeds on a Friday or Saturday night, he would scream, hands, like at the top of his lungs. I mean, he said it so many times, I could hear him and I would run the floor because, when we would be doing 500, 1,000 covers in maybe 4 hours on a busy night, I'm at the door. I'm on the floor. I'm doing what I do best. I'm running the board. You need somebody that is so organized and so calm when you have thousands of people standing at the front door, which is a whole nother conversation we'll get to in a minute. Mm-hmm. But when I can hear him at the front door and he's on the expo line,
that's a problem.
I literally darted across the restaurant. I was like, you need to stop. Like, I don't want to hear you. And the poor people that were sitting by him, like around our beautiful tree and, close to the expo line, don't want to hear you scream hands every 5 seconds. So, yes, we're not Michelin star. And yes, there's an open kitchen. And yes, you want the energy and the vibe of the kitchen, but nobody wants to hear you screaming. Ever.
But it doesn't matter if you're Michelin star. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, I'm still going out to eat. I'm still spending my hard-earned money. I still want a great experience. I don't care if it's your local diner or if it's a Michelin. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what type of restaurant you're in. Nobody who's paying money should be hearing that.
You would have died. You would have said, what the hell is going on there? What are you doing?
I worked in a very small restaurant. I worked for Chef Anita Lowe at her Michelin star called Anissa down in the West Village, which is no longer, unfortunately, up and running. But I think she had it for like 17 years. She had a great run. It was a very, very small restaurant. Only had 13 tables and 6 seats at the bar. That's it. It was tiny. So you can hear everything. Yeah. And so we had to constantly be reminded, like if we were at the POS station by the bar, shut your mouth, speak in a softer tone. And that's when using all of those hand signals comes in. And what your expo should have done, and this, or whoever was on the pass working at expo, if no runners were in the kitchen, they should have ducked their head out and looked for a runner, a server, and somebody, and sent somebody out to get hands instead of the screaming.
Right. Of course.
No screaming.
And again, this goes back to what I started telling you, why I connected so much to season 1. My husband in the kitchen, he's loud when he gets on the line. So we open these Italian restaurants and he's loud too. He's screaming and, he's talking to them in Spanish and he's doing his thing because he's, that kind of Italian hot-headed kind of vibe on the line.
An Italian hothead? Really?
Oh my God, yes. Wait till you meet him.
Please, my whole life.
Oh my God, wait till you meet him. So
my whole life.
Season 1, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is hysterical because I've worked in restaurants like this where, we're finding money in cans. We're like screaming on the line. I mean, the bills and the vendors on the table, there were so many things I connected with that were so great. And then as he started to turn it around, okay, I have to say, wait, as we're talking, I love the fact that they locked him in the walk-in. I've wanted to do that.
Oh, he locked himself in the walk-in. Yeah, 100%.
No. I thought
he locked himself in because
kept him in there.
He dropped the ball. No, because he dropped the ball because he was supposed to get the handle fixed the entire season, and he didn't do it. And he got locked in, and they couldn't let him out.
Okay, that was my favorite part of the show because you know how many people I've wanted to lock in the walk-in?
Listen, for everybody who's listening to us right now, just so you know, the walk-in in a restaurant is where people go to cry and have nervous breakdowns. 100%. I cannot tell you, or like throw a tantrum, cool down because you're heated over something. Like that's what, and actually, a little gossip for you. One of these restaurants I worked in, I went into the walk-in and there was the executive Sue and the prep cook making out in the walk-in.
Okay,
I was like,
that's what I was just going to tell you. There's more that happens in the walk-in.
Listen.
I'm talking other stuff besides.
Yes.
That's why you got to be, this is a whole nother topic, but I've had a chef OD because he was in the walk-in doing what he shouldn't have been doing.
Oh God, that's unfortunate.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. So watching this show, I felt all the bit of stress, and like you said, you were screaming at the TV.
Yeah.
I was like crying at some point, like, "Oh my God, I can feel that pain."
Yeah, I think for restaurant people, the show can be difficult to watch, but because the acting and the writing is so good, I'm pulling for these characters, and every single actor on that show, even if the actors only have 3 lines an episode, doesn't matter. Whoever cast the show did it to perfection. It's really great. But the walk-in is where we go and do things like cry or scream or make out with people or apparently do drugs if you're in Michelle's restaurant.
Yeah,
So
no,
there we have
not my
it.
restaurant, just one, because of course everybody in Fort Lickerdale, which is Fort Lauderdale, they call it Fort Lickerdale.
Yeah.
That's what they all do. I'm like, I've had the crazy, I can literally, as I'm writing my book, I am writing a book and I'll tell you about that later.
Ooh.
But I could literally write an entire book on my experience of owning a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale in 3 years. It would probably be a million chapters because there was so many things that go on there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, crazy. So
a lot of drug use, a lot of
of course. Well,
listen.
it's hard. You know, you have a lot of people that, you know, party all night and they sleep all day because they're in the restaurant business. I mean, not everybody takes it as seriously as restaurateurs or Michelin star chefs. I mean, there are people that are, you know, your servers, your bartenders, I mean, not as invested in, you know, the overall dining experience. They're there to make their money and get in and get out. And, you know, in some areas like Fort Lauderdale, or if you're in the islands, to them, it's like vacation. They sit on the beach all day, they work, and then they party all night, go back to sleep and do it again.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, the restaurant industry is notorious for abuse of substances.
Yes, absolutely.
And mental health challenges because it's such high stress and high pressure. And again, bringing this back to the bear, the other thing that I thought that they showed well, and I don't know if you saw this, when they had flashbacks of Carmy being in New York City in the Michelin with that chef. Now, I don't know who that chef was supposed to be. I'm sure we could all guess. I think it was probably a combination of a few New York City chefs.
Yeah,
but
sure.
It was brutal, and that sort of brutality does happen. It does at every level, not just Michelin. It happens at every level, but when you do have a Michelin or you have a few stars, and because once you have the stars, you can't lose them. Right. So now you have that added pressure that you have to maintain. Because remember a couple years back, Per Se, Thomas Keller.
Of course, I love Per Se.
New York Times, I think, took away 2 stars from him because he had dropped the ball, and he actually did a press release saying to, you know, the public, all the people that come to his restaurant, you know, I apologize, we dropped the ball, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think subsequently he's gotten them back. That was a few years ago. I have to check on that. But yes, there's a pressure that comes with once you get a star, and then you have to maintain it, because then once you lose it, it's not cute. And then people do look at you differently. They just do. And especially in New York, where new restaurants are opening every 3 seconds.
Well, and Krista, you have to remember, even for restaurants that don't make it, you know, or let's say they're dying and then they try to rebrand and they try to reopen. I mean, you can't fix it. Once you are done, you are done. I mean, you got to close, you got to grand open, you got to change your name. I mean, it's very hard to fix a restaurant with a bad reputation, whether it's bad food, bad service. You know, we can talk about reviews and Yelp and Google, and that's a whole can of worms. But once it's down, it's down. So losing stars is like the kiss of death, because it's really hard to turn that around.
Yes. As a matter of fact, this is brutal. I'm going to tell the story, though. This is when I was working for Anita Lowe, and we lost our star. And it was the day the stars were coming out, and someone had sent her a gift. Hey, congratulations on maintaining your star, assuming that we would maintain the star. Right. Well, it turns out we lost the star.
Wow.
And it was just like...
That's heart-wrenching.
It was just like... just pouring salt in the wound, like not only to lose the star, but like people are sending gifts, like assuming that we got it. Oh, hey, congrats. And oof, that was not a good service. Yeah. It's not a good day to be at work. But it's brutal. So I do like that, how the Bear did document that brutality side of it, because and we will get to this down the road, but in other episodes, but there is a mental health challenge throughout the restaurant industry. And
absolutely.
I think that they started.
And I loved that Carmy, they portrayed that, like they showed the mental anguish and him going back and the flashbacks and, you know, just all of his family issues that made him who he was, to make him want to do and be in the restaurant business and be amazing and Michelin star, but then to come back and take over a business, knowing that you're going to school and you want to be this, amazing chef and a Michelin star restaurant with service and great food and detail. Like you watch him in the show and he's leaning in and the detail and the painting of the dishes. And then to be able to have to go back and take a restaurant that's falling apart, that catches fire, that is a hot mess per se, and turn it into a Michelin star is just mental. I mean, I can relate to that. I've done it.
See, this is why you have to watch season 4, because now I don't want to tell you what happens in season 4 because I don't want to ruin it for you.
All right, and I'm going to watch season 4
and because it's a recent season, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody who's listening to us either, because it is a recent season. But what you're saying about how, he left Chicago, went to New York, trained at Michelin, trained with Boulud, trained with Thomas Keller, came back because his brother passed and closed down his sandwich shop to try and turn it into a Michelin. But then you have to see, I can't talk about it. You have to see what happens this season. And then we'll readdress it, because now
I'm going to watch it. So when we talk in the future, I can say, all right, I finally watched it and I see what you're saying.
Right, because the way this season ends is woof.
I have to ask you. So, mostly what we do is fast casual. I mean, we've had many full service. I mean, at one point, if we were to count all the restaurants we've done, we've probably had 35, 40 restaurants through the years. Okay. We've sold them, we've opened some, we've closed some, but really our business has always been fast casual. That's always pulled us through, whether it's a down economy, whatever it is, we're really fast casual. I don't want to say fast food because we're not fast food, but we've also owned our full service of, full service, but not Michelin. Right. So here's the thing. I mean, everybody focuses on the family meal, right? So tell me about your experience. I mean, we love it. We do it at all the Squisito stores. We make the family meal, but give me your intake, with.
Okay. So So for everybody listening, family meal is at the beginning of your shift, right? So depending on which kind of restaurant you work in or the time difference, for the most part, you go in, you clock in, you start doing side work. Then there's a time when there's family meal and you all sit down and you eat. And then you do final touches, make sure that your final uniform is on. You go into pre-shift and then you open the doors for service. That tends to be the pace of how it goes. Yeah. Family meal, it depends on where you work. I think it's important. The only chef that I've worked for who really understood what family meal meant and what it was about, was Chef Anita Lowe. This is apparently the Chef Anita Lowe episode. So because she did, and probably, not probably, but I'm sure the fact that we were a small restaurant helped, but she really believed that front of the house and back of the house sit down and break bread together. And that is correct. And that is how it should be. It's what I opened the show with, saying we are like peanut butter and jelly, front of the house, back of the house, salt and pepper. We go together. And we would sit at one big table. She would sit at the head, and front of the house and back of the house, and the chef would all sit together and have family meal together before a shift. That is how it should be. Is that how it normally is? No, it is not.
There's so many restaurants where the front and the back are two separate entities.
That's the norm.
It's like front of the house, back of the house. And the problem with that is if you don't have a synergy where the head chef and the general manager or the owner or whoever's running that restaurant, they're not together like peanut butter and jelly, like you said, there's so much disconnect. And I've had restaurants where the GM didn't like the head chef didn't like the GM. They didn't want to be, I couldn't get the head chef to do pre-shift. I mean, there should be somebody from the kitchen during pre-shift. What are the specials? What's going on? What communication? What are we 86? Of course, 86 means they're out of it. But, there's so many different things that need to happen between both businesses. They are two businesses that could run separately, but for a successful restaurant, they have to run together. Correct. So, family meal, even though for some restaurateurs, whether it's fast casual or full service, it's an opportunity to bring everybody together. It's also, a great way to test a certain dish, a great way to, get the entire crew to feel like they're part of something connected. I mean, I used to go as an owner, into these restaurants and conduct pre-shift, just so they could say, wow, Michelle's on the floor with us. Michelle's side by side. Michelle's making a drink. Michelle, just because it creates the level of connectivity to your restaurant and investment. So I'm so glad you said that, because that's why I asked the question.
Oh, well, see, so here's the thing. In my opinion, and you might disagree with me and get mad at me, but this is who we are. In my opinion, in those scenarios, and not just the scenarios you name, but I worked in those scenarios too at various restaurants, and some of them even Michelin. That starts at leadership. It is their fault. And that trickles down 100%. I don't care that the GM and the executive chef hate each other. I don't care. Put on your big boy pants. Yeah. You're going to come out, and because you're going to show your team that we work together. Because when you continue to act as if it's East and West Berlin and we don't cross the line, then that does not make for a good service. And then ultimately, who does that affect? The paying guest. Everything is not about the chef and getting on the Food Network and the dish that he puts out. Everything is not about that. What it should be about is the guest. We are there for the guest and their experience. That is the hospitality of it. That is the truth. Anybody who tells you otherwise, I think, has lost their mind. And so I think that the chef, the GM, everybody, there has to be a come to Jesus, and they have to show a united front, because those restaurants that I've worked in where back of the house and front of the house are separate from each other and they don't interact, it does not make for a happy work environment, which means you're going to have high turnover, both front of the house and back of the house. And it also doesn't help when there's issues and you have to go talk to the kitchen about something a guest just said to you, because that happens throughout service. It does not help the work environment. And that's why restaurants are toxic.
And it doesn't help the servers, because the servers feel like they're in the middle. I mean, they're there to make money. You know, your bartenders, your servers, your sommelier,
everybody's there to make money, or else we wouldn't work there.
Of course, they don't want the drama. Actually, some of them enjoy the drama. Need the drama.
But the job is about taking care of the guests. It's not when we clock in, when those doors open and the first guest is seated, it is no longer about me. It's about the guest.
It's funny because I used to say to everybody during pre-shift, I would say, all right, put your big panties on, button up your shirts, put your lipstick on, pull your hair back, look good, whatever it needs, but it's showtime. Curtains open.
Oh, girl, you better make sure HR is not present. If you say pull on your panties, you better make sure HR is not present.
Put your high heels on, put your lipstick on. I don't care what you put on.
You better be careful. HR is going to get you.
Okay, well, I am HR.
You are HR. Well, then there you have it.
HR, operations, you know, I'm all. I'm the hostess with the hostess.
Dear God. Yes. But yeah, at family meals, it should be everybody sitting down, breaking bread together. It just makes, forget about all the other stuff. It just makes work a happier place to be. Yeah. We all have to go to a job every single day. Unless you're like Jeff Bezos, right? Every one of us has to go to a job every single day.
Or now Lauren Bezos, one of the two.
Right, hello. But don't you want to walk into your work environment, whatever that is, and not feel your shoulders and your jaw clench up? Yeah. Because that's what it's like when you walk into a restaurant when there's that relationship, and it's not worth it. And that's where the mental health aspect comes in. That's where all the substance abuse comes in, because we don't create healthy work environments, and that has to change.
Exactly. Culture is 100%. And that's, you know, a whole nother topic we can get into is culture and what culture breeds, whether it's front of the house, back of the house. All right. So I have another question for you.
All right, go.
You and I can keep going on every topic, and we could talk yes, chef, purred.
I'm going to need a cocktail if this keeps going. Yeah, go.
That'd be a whole nother show. You and I will do cocktails on Tuesday.
Oh my God, I love it so much. All right, go ahead. What's your question?
So if you had to take away from the bear one thing, being a Michelin, you know, having your experience in the Michelin world, I mean, being restaurant, I'm sure I'll take away something different. You know, what's your number one question you get, and what's the one main thing that you take away from the show?
The number one question I get, is it real? Right. Are restaurants really like that? That's the main question I get. And honestly, for the most part, it is. I mean, it's the only TV show or movie I've seen about restaurants that actually portrays it pretty accurately. And that's because one of the chefs is a chef is one of the actors, and then there's chefs who are the producers, and they're consulting, and they do all of the chef stuff. So, and I think they also sent them to school to learn like knife skills and how to do all that. So I'm going to give them props for that. It is pretty accurate. The takeaway is hard because what happens is I get invested in the characters. And so for me, my takeaway is the character of Richie and the arc that he's had and how beautiful it is. Like how it's season 1, he's really lost. He's angry, he's lost, he's divorced, his kid doesn't have anything to do with him. And then to see the arc and to see where he is now and how he was able to allow himself to heal and go get help and find purpose. Like, it's so beautiful to see. That's the biggest thing I take away.
Yeah.
If you want me to mention something that's like the restaurant industry that I take away, for me, I'm very happy that they showed how front of the house communicates without communicating. I think that's so important because people don't realize all the stuff that we do that goes into them having a phenomenal experience. And by showing, and it was like B-roll, it wasn't even something major, but by them showing that that's what happens in restaurants, that I was like, yes, gold star across the board, 10s across the board for that one.
So I would say question for me too, 100%. Everybody always says, how real is it? How real is it? I think with any show that you have, that's any type of reality or whether it's restaurants or hospital shows or whatever it is. I mean,
legal shows. My sister's a lawyer. She hates all the legal shows. She's like, that won't happen. I'm like, just, I get it.
My brother's a surgeon. The first thing he says is, I can't watch anything that has to do with any hospital shows because it's all a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
But,
yeah, she's the same.
That's the first thing, of course. They say, you're a restaurateur. What do you think? And, my takeaway from this is everybody always wants to own a restaurant. Everybody that I know, whether they are football players or they are reality stars, or I can't tell you how many people have said to me, let's open a restaurant together. And, I'm also in the franchise business. So of course we sell franchises. And the first thing I tell them, and now I say it all the time, watch the first season of The Bear, and then come back and ask me, because the restaurant business is no joke. I mean, a lot of good restaurants make it look really easy because we make it look good. The food's good, the service is good. But it's a hard business and you can lose your ass.
Yep.
And, so to see it and for them to show you that and watch them break down and watch them run out of money. Like, I keep going over that because season 1 resonated so much because there's been times where real restaurateurs see that, or they have to close restaurants and pack all their stuff up and leave. That's my takeaway, that, if you really want to open a restaurant, watch a real show like that, because it's going to tell you who are the real restaurateurs that can really get in and make it, suck it up, get through the mental anguish and be a successful business.
Yeah. It's just not, whenever anybody asks me that question, like, hey, I want to open a restaurant, I always say, don't.
That's the first thing I say.
Just don't. Like, you don't even
flush down the toilet. You'll get better use out of it.
Just don't. It's 24/7 agita. Just honest. Like, I beg you, don't. But if you still feel that you have to, yes, go watch season 1 of The Bear.
Yeah, watch it.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time for today.
We are.
Well, thank you for
so wait, Krista.
Right. Yes.
Before we go, this was our first official podcast.
I know.
And we can talk for hours.
I know, but we don't want to.
We don't want to, because we'll bore the shit out of people.
Yeah. We want to keep them coming back for more.
Yeah.
Next time, maybe with a cocktail.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or dining dilemmas that you want Michele and I to discuss on the show, please reach out to us at dineanddishpodcast.com or our Instagram, Dine and Dish. Our DMs are open. Until next Wednesday, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.